and this moves into the next phase of the interesting, remarkable journey, I
Yes.
suppose, I've been on, is one of the ladies that was at the event is a lady called Jennifer de Broly, and she's an entrepreneur, and she's a co-founder of a charity, a non-profit charity called Abraham House. Now, Abraham House has had, it was launched in Davos last year, had
Oh,
I think
Davos.
the
I've heard
US,
of that.
it's where the World Economic Forum have their yearly events.
Ah, yeah.
So she listened to what I was saying. And by the way, I talked about everything, okay, including the issue of the COVID vaccine stuff, right? And she said, listen, let's talk. What you're doing is amazing. I love the real. You must meet my co-founder of Abraham House, a guy called Daniel Shikani, who I looked at, by the way, and is a very influential figure. He's a change agent. He's a co-founder. He's been named in Time's Next 100 Influencers, right? So he comes from he's had relationships with very senior people in WEF, okay? And that's how they got the platform, right? Now, I was like, okay, fine, let's meet Daniel. So I go and meet Daniel for breakfast, and I sit there for an hour, and he listens to my story, and he's really taken in by it. And John, to be honest, my experience in this as well, and I'm sure you understand this, is that I always genuinely believe that a lot of what's gone on and what's happened, and this is from even conversations with the likes of Preeti Patel and David Davis, I'm naming people now, Andy Burnham, Jeremy Hunt, although he hasn't fully come around yet, on talking to them one-on-one, and some very famous broadcasters as well, who still haven't necessarily, who are understanding what's going on, but haven't fully got there yet, is don't underestimate the power of the truth and the power of your speech and the power of conveying things with compassion and humility to change hearts and minds. And I've done that, I've tested that out when I've gone around the world and gone to a prominent hospital in India where most of the doctors were responsible for rolling out the COVID vaccine over there. And literally pin drop silence at the end of my talk, where literally they've turned in 1 hour from the talk. Okay, so most people, in my view, are misguided and are ignorant on this. And of course, there are going to be malevolent actors, John. There are people that are sociopathic. We know that. I don't know what the incidence of sociopathy is in the population. Maybe it's 1%. But most people are intrinsically well-intentioned. And this guy was blown away. He said, listen, we need to make you a strategic advisor. We want to bring people together to have conversations. No one is excluded. We understand, I told them this is market failure. I said this is ultimately self-destructive to people who are part of the WEF, senior people, in terms of their economic interests. It's ultimately self-destructive because it's market failure, right? So, but that conversation needs to be had with the right person at the right time in the right platform. And for me, he said, listen, we need to get you to speak. And there's other people we're thinking of getting to come there, including Jay Naidu, who, by the way, was the guy that was chief orchestrator of Nelson Mandela's release from prison. A very powerful voice in Africa. I spoke to him this morning, and I said to him, what, he said, Aseem, it's great you're doing this. He said, and there are people who are very angry, understandably, with what's gone on, and that's fine. But ultimately, we need peace, and there are people out there that are talking about violent acts, and WF are an evil cabal, and they planned all of this. And I genuinely, listen, it's possibly true. It's very unlikely in my view. Possibly we should let's hear them out. But I think it's more likely that this is just, a system failure. And there are people that have profited from a system, and they don't realize just how bad that system is, harming everyone, including themselves. And Jay said to me, I said, Jay, how do you feel about this approach where people feel so much anger? And of course, there has to be accountability. There's no doubt about it, right? When all of this gets exposed, there has to be accountability. But ultimately, everybody wants peace. And he said, when Mandela came out of prison, he said to me, he was asked by a journalist, have you got revenge in your heart? Because if you think about what happened, John, people should look back at this story if they haven't. What happened during apartheid South Africa and brutal, explicit murder by authorities and police of black activists, of apartheid, what it did, the horror that it did. He could have come out and said, let's get them. And massacred most of the white population of South Africa. That could have happened, but it didn't. Because Mandela was converted in prison by the teachings of Gandhi, which is non-violent resistance. Because what Gandhi said is, when you have non-violent resistance, it raises the consciousness of the oppressor and the oppressed. That's how he managed to get the Brits out of India, right? Through this mechanism, if you like, of non-violent resistance, because the respect of the people that were oppressing him increased because of the way he approached things, right? Through compassion, right? When he was, what was Gandhi's one of his famous sayings? You can, your sticks and stones may hurt me, may break my bones, but you'll never have my obedience, Okay, so Mandela was converted by this, and when he was asked by that journalist, "Is there revenge in your heart?" He said, "If there was revenge in my heart, I'd still be in prison." Okay, so listen, people may disagree, they may have an eye for an eye approach, but I think this is our best way forward, and we have to change hearts and minds. We have to build bridges, and these are people who have got significant power, John, in this system. They have been part of creating this system. They have to realize that it's damaging for everybody, even themselves. And this, in my view, is a way to have those conversations and help create the change. And we have to keep doing that.
We need more than peace. We need synergy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
So practically, you're going to be going and giving some talks there, Aseem. Is that?
Yeah, as part of Abraham House, which, by the way, is free and open access. I'm not being paid for this role. I'm paying my own expenses. Anybody can come to Abraham House. And what happens with Abraham House is we will attract a lot of the key people who are in the main Davos WEF event to come there. And we're going to have those conversations, be able to meet people. And I think that's what it's about, having those conversations first, getting them to listen. And when you give these talks in a platform where you've got 1,000 people, right, it has a different effect even when you're just having a one-on-one conversation, John. So I'm going there with hope.
Yeah, it's two different types of communication.
John, what's the alternative? We stay in our own camps, we live in our echo chambers, we get more and more angry, and nothing changes.
And of course, these people that are in these systems will themselves go to doctors.
Yeah,
they've got put the health of themselves and their families to consider as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, would you like to report when you've been, Aseem? We'd love to.
Well, listen, it's not going to happen until January, so there's lots going to happen before then.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's just the beginning, but for me, I thought it was a great, it's a wonderful opportunity. I've been asked, and it's again the power of changing hearts and minds. And what I would say to people, and I'm constantly trying to do better, is and this is from deep spiritual reading, from reading what Gandhi did, what Martin Luther King did, Mandela, Buddhist teachings of the Bible, is that if you genuinely are coming from a place of integrity and openness, and you want to have a conversation, and you're doing it to help the other person, and it's not getting through, then just do better, try better.
Yep, absolutely. And of course, Gandhi was influenced by the New Testament as well. It flows through history. Good. Well, I'm stunned. I'm going to watch that back through and put it on. That's brilliant. Great. Aseem, as always. Thank you for coming on, and always welcome, of course. Great to talk to you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll finish with one line,
please.
And this is what was in the press: where ignorance ends, healing begins.
Yep.
Evil is rooted in ignorance. Ancient wisdom teaches us that, John. But what's worse than ignorance is the illusion of knowledge. And we have to all think about that constantly. We are in a constant, every day I'm trying to learn something new.
Absolutely.
And challenge some of my own assumptions. Yep. And we all, if everybody had that humility and curiosity, the world would be in a much better state. But we can change that culture. We can teach that culture as well through our actions.
Yeah, we've got widespread humility deficit disorder, unfortunately. But
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Great. Aseem, thank you very much. Great to talk to you.
Lots of love.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.